Captain Hyunwoo Kim stared at the broken space station floating in the darkness. Metal pieces drifted everywhere like a deadly cloud. His ship, the Terra's Hope, moved slowly through the wreckage. The emergency beacon had stopped working an hour ago, but they were already too close to turn back. "Captain, I'm reading some life signs," said Yuna Choi from her seat at the communications desk. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. "They're very weak, but something is still alive in there." Hyunwoo nodded. "So, Jin, get your medical kit ready. Daeho, can we dock with what's left of that station?" Engineer Daeho Lee looked at his screens and frowned. "It's not going to be easy, sir. Most of the docking ports are gone, but I can get us close enough for a spacewalk." The space station had belonged to the Drakmori, a species that looked like walking lizards. Most people in the galaxy thought they were just smart animals. The Vorthan Empire had destroyed their homeworld months ago, saying they were dangerous. Now it looked like the Vorthans had found this secret station too. Hyunwoo put on his spacesuit and grabbed his emergency kit. Sojin Park, their medic, came with him. They floated across the empty space between their ship and the broken station. The metal walls were twisted and burned. Holes had been blasted through everything. Inside the station, they found bodies of adult Drakmori floating in the air. Their scales were dull and gray now. Hyunwoo felt sad looking at them. These beings had been trying to hide from the war, but the war had found them anyway. "Over here, Captain," Sojin called out. She was looking at a room filled with broken glass tanks. "This looks like some kind of laboratory. The tanks had once held water or some other liquid. Now everything floated in the air like deadly bubbles." Computer screens flickered with dying power. Hyunwoo could see research notes written in Drakmori symbols on the walls. "They were trying to save something," he said quietly. "Look at all this equipment. This wasn't a weapons lab. This was something else." So Jin moved deeper into the room. Suddenly she stopped. "Captain, you need to see this." In the corner of the room, behind a fallen piece of metal, something small moved. Hyunwoo pushed the debris away carefully. There, no bigger than his hand, was a tiny creature with rainbow-colored scales. It had small wings that looked like glass and huge golden eyes that seemed to look right into his soul. The baby dragon was barely breathing. Its tiny chest moved up and down very slowly. One of its wings was hurt, and it made soft sounds like a kitten in pain. "Is that a Drakmori?" Hyunwoo asked in amazement. Sojin scanned it with her medical tools. "Yes, but it's just a baby, maybe a few weeks old. I don't know how it survived when everything else died." Hyunwoo reached out slowly. The baby dragon looked at him with those big eyes. When his gloved finger touched its head gently, the tiny creature made a sound like purring. Its scales began to glow with a warm light. "We have to take it back to the ship," he said. "It won't live much longer without help." So Jin carefully picked up the baby dragon. It was so light, like holding a small bird. "I'll do what I can, but I don't know anything about Drakmori biology. We might not be able to save it." Back on the Terra's Hope, they put the tiny dragon in the medical bay. Daeho had rigged up a small heating pad and oxygen mask that fit over its little snout. Yuna stood nearby, recording everything with her camera. "I've never seen anything so small and helpless," she whispered. "Look at those eyes, it's like it understands everything we're saying." The baby dragon wouldn't eat the food Sojin offered. It just lay there, breathing softly and looking around with curious eyes. Its scales had stopped glowing, which worried everyone. "Maybe it's scared," Hyunwoo said. He sat down next to the small medical table. "Hey there, little one. We're not going to hurt you." At the sound of his voice, the baby dragon's head turned toward him. Its eyes got brighter. When Hyunwoo held out his hand, the tiny creature tried to crawl toward him, even though it was too weak to move much. "It likes you, Captain," Sojin observed. "That's interesting. Most wild animals are afraid of strangers." Hyunwoo gently stroked the baby dragon's head with one finger. The creature made that purring sound again, and its scales began to glow softly. This time the light was warm and golden like sunshine. "What should we call it?" Yuna asked. "How about Spark?" Hyunwoo suggested. Because of the way it glows. As if it understood, the baby dragon's glow got brighter for a moment. Then it closed its eyes and seemed to fall asleep, but it kept one tiny claw touching Hyunwoo's finger. Sir, Daeho said from the bridge, we've got company. 3 ships just came out of hyperspace. They're Vorthan military. Hyunwoo's blood went cold. The Vorthans were the ones who had destroyed the Drakmori homeworld. If they found out about Spark, they would want to take the baby away for their experiments. Can we run? He asked. Maybe, but they're already scanning us. If we try to escape now, they'll know we found something worth hiding. The baby dragon opened its eyes and looked at Hyunwoo. Those golden eyes seemed to say, please, don't let them take me. In that moment, Hyunwoo knew he would do anything to protect this tiny, helpless creature. Set course for the nearest human colony, he ordered, and see if you can make this ship go faster than it's ever gone before. As the Terra's Hope prepared to jump to hyperspace, Spark made a soft sound and his scales flickered with light. Somehow, Hyunwoo knew their real adventure was just beginning. 3 days had passed since they rescued Spark from the destroyed station. The baby dragon still would not eat for anyone except Captain Hyunwoo. So-jin had tried everything she could think of, but Spark would just turn his little head away and close his eyes. This is getting serious, So-jin told Hyunwoo as they stood in the medical bay. He's getting weaker. If he doesn't eat soon, we're going to lose him. Hyunwoo sat down next to the small bed they had made for Spark. The tiny dragon immediately perked up, his golden eyes brightening. His scales began to glow with that warm light that made everyone smile. Hey there, little guy, Hyunwoo said softly. You need to eat something. He held out a small piece of protein paste on his finger. Spark sniffed it carefully, then took a tiny bite. The paste was bigger than his whole mouth, so he had to nibble at it like a mouse eating cheese. As soon as Spark swallowed, his whole body lit up like a Christmas tree. The glow was so bright and happy that Yuna laughed out loud. He really does. Like you, Captain, she said. I've never seen an animal bond with someone so quickly. Maybe it's because humans saved him, Daeho suggested from the doorway. Animals can sense when someone means them no harm. Spark finished eating and immediately crawled over to Hyunwoo's hand. The baby dragon was so small he could sit in the captain's palm, but he preferred to climb up his arm and sit on his shoulder. From there, Spark would look around at everything with curious eyes and make soft, chirping sounds. I think he's trying to talk, Yuna observed. Listen to the patterns in those sounds, they're not random. She was right. Spark would make different sounds when he was happy, different ones when he wanted attention, and completely different ones when he was sleepy. It was like he had his own little language. Daeho had been busy making things for their tiny passenger. He built a small environmental suit that would let Spark breathe and stay warm, even if the ship lost power. He also made a tiny bed with soft padding and a heat lamp. But Spark's favorite place was still Hyunwoo's shoulder. He would sit there during meals, during meetings, even during sleep time. The baby dragon seemed to think the captain was his parent now. You know what's strange? So-jin said one evening as they all sat in the common room. I've been reading about Drakmori biology. The adults are supposed to be huge, like the size of a building, but they all start out this small. Maybe that's why they're so protective of their young, Hyunwoo replied. Spark was sleeping on his shoulder, making tiny snoring sounds that were adorable. Something this helpless would need a lot of care. Yuna was playing soft music from Earth. It was an old lullaby that her grandmother used to sing. As the melody filled the room, something amazing happened. Spark woke up and began to glow in time with the music. His scales created patterns of light that matched the rhythm of the song. Are you seeing this? Daeho whispered in amazement. The baby dragon was making his own light show. Blues and greens swirled across his tiny body like ocean waves. When the music got louder, his colors got brighter. When it got softer, his glow became gentle and warm. He's an artist, Yuna breathed. He's making music with light. The peaceful moment was broken by alarms from the bridge. Daeho ran to check the controls while the others followed quickly. Spark clung to Hyunwoo's shirt, his scales flashing red with fear. Captain, we've got a big problem, Daeho announced. There's a Vorthan dreadnought blocking our path. They're demanding we stop and prepare to be boarded. On the main screen, a huge battleship filled their view. It was 10 times bigger than the Terra's Hope, with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. The ship was dark gray with sharp angles, built to look scary. "They're hailing us," Yuna reported, her voice tight with worry. "Put them on screen," Hyunwoo ordered. The image of a Vorthon commander appeared on their monitor. The alien looked like a cross between a shark and a snake, with cold black eyes and rows of sharp teeth. His uniform was covered in military medals. "Human vessel, I am Commander Vexitar of the Vorthon Imperial Fleet. Our sensors detect you are carrying Drakmori biological material. You will surrender this specimen immediately for proper disposal." Hyunwoo felt Spark trembling on his shoulder. The baby dragon had hidden himself under the captain's hair, but his tiny claws dug into the fabric of his shirt. "I don't know what you're talking about," Hyunwoo lied. "We're just a rescue ship heading home. Do not insult my intelligence, human. We tracked you from the destroyed research facility. That station contained dangerous biological weapons. Whatever you found there must be turned over to proper authorities." "And by proper authorities you mean you?" Hyunwoo asked, his voice getting angry. The Drakmori were a threat to galactic peace. Any surviving specimens must be eliminated before they can breed and create more problems. Spark made a tiny sound of fear and pressed closer to Hyunwoo's neck. The captain could feel the baby dragon's little heart beating fast with terror. "I'm sorry, Commander, but I can't help you," Hyunwoo said firmly. "We haven't found anything." Commander Vextar's eyes got colder. "Then you will not mind if we search your vessel. Prepare to be boarded, or we will take your ship by force." "You." Screen went black. Immediately, Yuna was at her controls checking their options. "Captain, they're launching boarding pods," she reported. 6 of them, full of soldiers. "How long until they reach us?" Hyunwoo asked. 10 minutes, maybe less." Spark popped his little head up and looked at Hyunwoo with those big golden eyes. The baby dragon made a determined chirping sound as if to say, "I trust you to keep me safe." "Daeho, can this ship outrun a dreadnought?" Hyunwoo asked. "Not normally, but I've been making some modifications to the engines. If we can get a head start and reach the asteroid field near Kepler Station, we might have a chance." "Do it. Yuna, send a message to any human ships in the area. Tell them we need help." As the Terra's Hope turned and began to accelerate away, from the Vorthon ship, Spark's scales began to glow brighter. The tiny dragon seemed to understand they were running away, and somehow his light made everyone feel a little braver. "Hold on, little guy," Hyunwoo whispered. "We're going to keep you safe no matter what." The Terra's Hope shook as another energy blast from the Vorthon dreadnought missed them by only a few hundred meters. Hyunwoo held onto his chair with one hand, while his other hand protected Spark, who was clinging to his shoulder. The baby dragon's scales were flashing bright red with fear, but he hadn't made a sound of complaint. "How much further to the asteroid field?" Hyunwoo shouted over the noise of straining engines. 2 minutes, Captain," Daeho called back from his station. Sweat was running down his face as he pushed their ship harder than it was designed to go. "But I don't know if the engines can take much more of this." Another blast hit closer this time, and sparks flew from one of the control panels. Sojin quickly put out a small fire with an extinguisher while Yuna kept sending distress calls to any human ships that might hear them. "Captain," Yuna said urgently, "I'm getting responses to our distress call, but the nearest human ship is 6 hours away. We're on our own." Spark suddenly made a sharp chirping sound and pointed one tiny claw toward the left side of the main screen. Hyunwoo looked where the baby dragon was pointing and saw nothing but empty space. "What is it, little guy?" he asked, softly. Spark chirped again, more insistently, and kept pointing in the same direction. His scales began to pulse with a strange blue light that none of them had seen before. "Daeho, can you take us left about 30 degrees? Hyunwoo ordered, trusting his tiny companion. "Sir, that's not the way to the asteroid field," Daeho protested. "I know, but do it anyway. Trust me." Daeho changed their course. As soon as they did, a massive energy beam cut through the space where they would have been if they had kept going straight. The blast was so powerful, it would have destroyed their ship completely. "How did you know?" Sojin asked in amazement. Hyunwoo looked at Spark, who was now glowing with a satisfied golden light. I think our little friend has some abilities we don't understand yet. They reached the asteroid field and Deho began flying between the floating rocks. The Terra's Hope was much smaller than the Vorthon Dreadnought, so they could fit through spaces that the big warship couldn't follow. But the Vorthons had fighter ships and those were small enough to chase them anywhere. 3 fighters coming in fast, Yuna reported. They're trying to box us in. The asteroid field was like flying through a deadly maze. Some rocks were as big as cities while others were no bigger than cars. They all moved in different directions, spinning and bumping into each other. One wrong move would smash their ship into pieces. Spark started making excited chirping sounds again. This time he pointed right, then left, then up toward a gap between 2 spinning asteroids that looked impossibly narrow. He's giving us directions, Hyunwoo realized. Deho, follow where he points. Captain, with respect, we're trusting our lives to a baby animal who weighs less than my lunch. That baby animal just saved us from being vaporized. Follow his directions. Deho shrugged and turned the ship toward the gap Spark had indicated. It looked like there was no way they would fit, but as they got closer, the 2 asteroids moved, apart just enough for them to slip through. Behind them, one of the Vorthon fighters tried to follow and crashed into the rock wall. For the next 20 minutes, Spark guided them through the asteroid field like he had a map in his head. Every time he pointed, there was a safe path. Every time he chirped an alarm, they changed course just in time to avoid a collision or an enemy blast. This is impossible, Sojin whispered. It's like he can see the future. Maybe not the future, Yuna said thoughtfully. But what if he can sense gravity fields? The way objects move in space depends on gravity. If he could feel that, he could predict where everything is going to be. Hyunwoo finished. That's why adult Drakmori are such good pilots. They can feel space itself. By the time they escaped the asteroid field, they had lost all 3 fighter ships and the dreadnought was far behind. Spark made a happy trilling sound and his scales returned to their normal warm golden glow. Where to now, Captain? Deho asked. Set course for New Busan Colony. It's the nearest human settlement and they have defensive systems in case the Vorthons follow us. The flight to New Busan took 8 hours. During that time, Sojin made an amazing discovery. She had been monitoring Spark's vital signs when she noticed something strange on her instruments. Captain, you need to see this, she called out. Those chirping sounds Spark makes, they're not just sounds. My equipment is picking up some kind of subspace signal every time he makes noise. What do you mean? Hyunwoo asked. I mean, he's not just chirping. He's broadcasting on frequencies that can travel faster than light. Those aren't just baby sounds. They're messages being sent across the galaxy. Yuna looked up from her communications station with wide eyes. If that's true, then every time Spark has been afraid or happy, he's been telling someone about it, someone who might be listening. Who would be listening? Hyunwoo wondered out loud. Spark looked up at him with those big golden eyes and made a soft sound that somehow seemed like he was saying, "My family." New Busan was a beautiful colony world covered in green forests and blue oceans. The human settlers had built their cities to blend in with the natural landscape. As their ship approached the planet, they could see farms and parks mixed in with the buildings. The colony's governor, Min Ho-yoon, met them at the spaceport personally. He was a kind-looking man in his 50s, with laugh lines around his eyes. When he saw Spark sitting on Hyunwoo's shoulder, his face lit up with wonder. Is that really a Drakmori hatchling? He asked in amazement. His name is Spark, Hyunwoo said proudly. And yes, he's the real thing. The Vorthons want to take him away for experiments, but we're not going to let that happen. Governor Yoon nodded seriously. Then he's welcome here for as long as he needs. Protection. New Busan has always been a sanctuary for those who need help. That evening, they attended a welcome dinner in the colony's main hall. The human colonists were fascinated by Spark, especially the children. The baby dragon seemed to love the attention. He created beautiful light shows that made the children laugh and clap their hands. One little girl named Eunji offered Spark a piece of her dessert. The tiny dragon sniffed it carefully, then took a small bite. His scales turned bright pink with pleasure, which made everyone laugh. He likes sweet things, Yoonji announced proudly. Just like me. For the first time since they had found him, Spark seemed truly happy. He played with the children, showed off his light displays, and purred contentedly when they petted his soft scales. Hyunwoo watched with a smile, thinking that maybe they had finally found a safe place for their little friend. But their peace didn't last long. The next morning, Governor Yoon called Hyunwoo to his office with urgent news. Captain, our long range. Sensors have detected a Vorthan fleet approaching. 12 ships, including 2 dreadnoughts. They'll be here in 6 hours. What are their demands? Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. They want us to surrender the Drakmori specimen, or they'll bombard our colony from orbit. They're giving us until sunset to decide. Hyunwoo felt Spark trembling on his shoulder. The baby dragon had heard every word and understood that the bad people were coming for him again. What's the colony's decision? Hyunwoo asked quietly. Governor, Yoon smiled grimly. The people of New Busan voted an hour ago. It was unanimous. We don't surrender our friends to bullies no matter how big their ships are. The 12 Vorthan warships hung in space above New Busan like dark storm clouds. Their weapons were pointed at the colony, ready to turn the beautiful world into a burned wasteland. On the main screen in the colony's command center, Commander Vextar looked even more cruel than before. Humans, he said with disgust in his voice. You have 1 hour to bring us the Drakmori specimen. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what happens to those who harbor dangerous creatures. Governor Yoon stood straight and looked directly at the Vorthan commander. Our answer is no. We don't give up our friends to murderers. Then you have doomed your entire colony for the sake of one worthless animal. Your deaths will serve as a lesson to others who might think to interfere with Vorthan justice. The screen went black. All around the command center, colony defense officers prepared for the worst. Their small defense fleet had only 3 ships, and their planetary shields could only take a few hits from weapons that powerful. Hyunwoo stood near the main window, looking up at the enemy fleet. Spark sat on his shoulder, unusually quiet. The baby dragon hadn't made any sound for the past hour, but his scales were pulsing with a strange rhythm, like a heartbeat made of light. He's been doing that since the Vorthans arrived, Sojin observed. I think he's calling for help. Help from who? Daeho asked. Every Drakmori in the galaxy is supposed to be dead. Yuna was monitoring all communication frequencies when she suddenly sat up straight. Captain, I'm picking up something strange. There are subspace signals coming from all over the galaxy, all focused on this system, hundreds of them. What kind of signals? The same frequency Spark uses when he chirps. Someone is answering his calls. Governor Yoon activated the colony's emergency broadcast system. His voice reached every home and building on New Busan. Citizens, in 30 minutes the Vorthans will attack our world. Anyone who wants to evacuate to the underground shelters should go now. But remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for the idea that the strong should protect the weak, not destroy them. Most of the colonists chose to stay above ground. They gathered in the streets and parks, looking up at the sky with determination. Many of them held their children close, but none of them looked ready to surrender. Little Yoonji, the girl who had shared her dessert with Spark, stood with her parents in the main square. She waved at the baby dragon, who responded by creating a small rainbow of lights just for her. Don't worry, Spark, she called out. We'll keep you safe. The baby dragon looked at her with his big golden eyes and made a soft sound that somehow seemed like, thank you. 15 minutes before the deadline, space itself began to change around New Busan. Tears appeared in the darkness, like someone was cutting holes in a black curtain. Through these tears came ships unlike anything anyone had ever seen. They were Drakmori ships, but not the small research vessels like the one where they had found Spark. These were massive, beautiful things that looked like they were grown rather than built. Their hulls were covered in the same rainbow scales as Spark. But these scales were the size of buildings. The ships moved through space like living creatures, flowing and graceful. How many? Governor Yoon whispered in amazement. Yuna checked her sensors and could hardly believe what she was seeing. Over 200 ships, sir, and more keep coming. The largest ship positioned itself directly between New Busan and the Vorthon fleet. It was so big that it cast a shadow over half the planet. When it opened its communication channel, a voice like gentle thunder spoke in perfect human language. Vorthons, I am Shalthis, matriarch of the Drakmori. You have threatened those who protect my child. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Commander Vextar's image appeared on screens throughout the colony. For the first time, he looked uncertain. The Drakmori are extinct. You are some kind of trick. We allowed you to believe we were destroyed because we hoped you would leave the galaxy in peace. We were wrong. You mistake mercy for weakness. Spark suddenly became very active on Hyunwoo's shoulder. He spread his tiny wings and made excited, chirping sounds while his scales blazed with happy golden light. Through the communication system, everyone could hear Shalthis respond with similar sounds, though hers were deeper and more complex. My son tells me you have cared for him with kindness, she said to the humans. He says you gave him food when he was hungry, warmth when he was cold, and protection when he was afraid. This is not something we expected from any species. Governor. Yoon stepped forward. We couldn't do anything else. He was just a baby who needed help. Just a baby, Shalthis repeated thoughtfully. Yes, that is exactly why your actions matter so much. You saved him not because he was important, but because he was helpless. You risked your lives not for profit or alliance, but simply because it was right. Commander Vextar's voice cut across the conversation. Drakmori scum! Your species should have stayed hidden. Now we'll finish what we started and destroy every last one of you. The Vorthon fleet opened fire on the Drakmori ships. Their weapons were powerful enough to crack moons. But when the energy beams hit the Drakmori vessels, something amazing happened. The rainbow scales on the ship's hulls absorbed the energy and turned it into beautiful displays of light that spread across space like aurora. Our scales can store and redirect energy, Shalthis explained calmly as her ships began to glow, brighter. The more you shoot at us, the stronger we become. What happened next was not really a battle. It was more like a demonstration. The Drakmori ships moved like dancers, surrounding the Vorthon fleet while avoiding their weapons with impossible grace. When they finally returned fire, their energy beams were perfectly precise. Instead of destroying the Vorthon ships, they disabled their weapons and engines, leaving them floating helplessly in space. We could destroy you, Shalthis announced, but we choose mercy. You will return to your empire and tell them what you have learned today. The Drakmori are not extinct, and we will not tolerate the slaughter of innocents. Commander Vextar's ship limped away, followed by what remained of his fleet. As they disappeared into hyperspace, their running lights looked like the tails of frightened animals. But the most amazing thing happened next. Shalthis's ship landed in the main square of New Busan, somehow becoming smaller as it touched down, until it was only the size of a large building. A section of its hull opened like a flower and outstepped the most beautiful creature any human had ever seen. Shalthis was like Spark, grown to full size, but she was as tall as a house, and her scales shimmered with every color imaginable. Her wings were folded against her back like a cape made of starlight, and her eyes were the same warm golden color as her son's. Spark made excited chirping sounds and launched himself from Hyunwoo's shoulder, flying on his tiny wings toward his mother. Shalthis caught him gently in one enormous claw and nuzzled him with her great head while making soft rumbling sounds of joy. All around the square, humans watched with tears in their eyes as mother and child were reunited. Even tough soldiers were wiping their faces as they witnessed the power of love that crossed all boundaries of species and size. My son must choose now, Shalthis announced, looking at the gathered humans. He can come with us to learn the ways of our people, or he can stay with those who saved him. The choice is his. Spark looked at his mother, then at Hyunwoo, then at all the humans who had become his family. He made a complex series of lights and sounds that went on for several minutes. When he finished, Shalthis made a sound that could only be laughter. He says, why should he have to choose? He asks why he cannot have both families. He is young, but already he shows wisdom. She looked at Governor Yoon with eyes that held the depth of ancient knowledge. Would you be willing to establish a permanent Embassy here? A place where both our species can learn from each other? Nothing would make us happier, Governor Yoon replied immediately. As the sun set over New Busan, humans and Drakmori worked together to build a new future. Spark flew back and forth between his two families, glowing with happiness brighter than the stars above. 6 months had passed since the day the Drakmori returned to save New Busan. The colony had changed in wonderful ways that no one could have imagined. Where the main square used to be, there now stood the first Terran Drakmori embassy, a building that seemed to be part human architecture and part living organism. Its walls were covered in scales that changed color with the weather, and its roof had small landing pads for Drakmori visitors. Captain Hyunwoo Kim, now officially Ambassador Kim, stood on his office balcony watching Spark play with a group of human children in the garden below. The baby dragon had grown to the size of a house cat, but he still loved to perch on Hyunwoo's shoulder during important meetings. His scales had developed new patterns as he grew, creating swirls of gold and silver that moved like liquid metal across his body. Spark showed them the rainbow trick, called out Yoonji, who had become the baby dragon's best human friend. Spark spread his wings and created a perfect arch of colored light that stretched from one side of the garden to the other. The children ran underneath it, laughing as sparkles of light fell around them like glowing snow. When they applauded, Spark's scales flushed pink with pride and happiness. "He's getting stronger every day," said So-jin, who now served as the embassy's chief medical officer. She joined Hyunwoo on the balcony with her daily report. "His light displays are more complex, and his subspace communication range has increased by 30%. Yesterday, I caught him having a conversation with his mother while she was 3 star systems away." "What do they talk about?" Hyunwoo asked with a smile. "From what I can understand, typical mother and son things. She asks if he's eating enough. He tells her about his friends. She worries that he's growing up too fast. It's actually quite sweet." Daeho approached them with a tablet full of construction reports. He had been promoted to chief of embassy operations and was clearly enjoying the challenge of building technology that worked for both humans and Drakmori. "The new playground equipment is finished," he announced proudly. "It can handle everything from human children to young Drakmori, who might weigh several tons. The swings are reinforced, the climbing structures can support massive weight, and the slides are made from the same material as spacecraft hulls." "Any word from the Galactic Council about our application?" Hyunwoo asked. Yuna, now serving as the embassy's communications director, appeared at the balcony door with exciting news. "We've been approved. The Terran Drakmori Alliance is now officially recognized as a sovereign entity with full voting rights in the Galactic Council. 3 other species have already requested similar partnerships with human colonies." Down in Tionindam, the garden, Spark noticed the adults talking on the balcony and flew up to join them. He had learned to control his flight much better and could now hover in place while creating light patterns with his wings. When he landed on Hyunwoo's shoulder, he made a questioning chirp that clearly meant, "What's happening?" "We were just talking about how much the galaxy has changed because of you, little guy," Hyunwoo said, gently scratching behind Spark's tiny horns. The baby dragon puffed out his chest proudly and made a series of lights that spelled out, "Thank you," in human letters. He had learned to write with light by watching the children do their homework, and he loved to show off this new skill. A soft chime from the embassy's communication system announced the arrival of Shalthis for her weekly visit. Through the large windows, they could see her ship descending gracefully toward the landing pad. As it touched down, the ship's scales shifted from the deep blue of space travel to the warm gold of homecoming. Spark immediately became excited, his scales flashing with anticipation. He zoomed down to the landing pad, followed more slowly by the human staff. When Shalthis emerged from her ship, now in her smaller form that was only twice the size of a human, Spark performed an elaborate aerial dance of lights and sounds. That was his way of saying, "I missed you, Mom. My little star," Shalthis said in her musical voice, catching Spark and nuzzling him gently. "Have you been good for your human family?" Spark chirped indignantly as if to say, "I'm always good," which made everyone laugh. "Actually," Hyunwoo said with mock seriousness, "he got in trouble yesterday for teaching the human children how to Sneak extra dessert from the kitchen using his light displays as a distraction. Shalthis made a sound that was definitely laughter. Then he is learning important skills. Cleverness and loyalty to friends are valuable traits for any young Drakmori. They walked together toward the embassy building, where a special meeting room had been designed with seating for both humans and Drakmori. On the walls were photographs and light paintings showing the history of their friendship, from the first day they found Spark, to the great battle above New Busan, to the construction of the embassy. "I have news from the Drakmori Council," Shaltisi announced as they settled into their seats. Spark perched between his two families, content to be with everyone he loved. "We have decided to share one of our most precious secrets with humanity." She gestured with one claw, and holographic images appeared in the air above the table. They showed star maps with routes marked in glowing lines. "These are the paths through folded space that allow instant travel between any 2 points in the galaxy. We have kept this knowledge hidden for thousands of years, but we believe humans can be trusted with it." Yuna gasped. That's incredible. With this technology, we could explore the entire galaxy. We could help other species, establish more embassies, spread the message of cooperation instead of conquest. That is exactly why we are sharing it," Shalthis confirmed. "In 6 months, you have accomplished something that took our species millennia to learn. You have proven that different kinds of beings can live together not just in peace, but in joy." Daeho was studying the technical specifications with wide eyes. "The engineering principles are completely different from anything we've ever seen. This will change everything we know about physics. And we will teach you, as you have taught us, about the power of unconditional kindness," Shalthis replied. "Your people's gift for caring about others, even complete strangers, has shown us new ways to see the universe." As if to demonstrate, Spark suddenly took off from the table and flew out the window toward the colony's hospital. The adults followed, curious about where he was going in such a hurry. They found him in the children's ward, creating gentle light patterns for a little boy who had been injured in a farming accident. The child's face, which had been tight with pain, relaxed into a smile as Spark's lights danced around him like friendly fireflies. "He does this every day," Sojin explained quietly. "He visits everyone in the hospital, the elderly care center, even the animal shelter. He seems to know exactly what kind of lights will make each person feel better. He learned that from watching you," Shalthis said to Hyunwoo. "Drakmori Young absorbed the behavior of those they bond with. He saw how you cared for him when he was helpless, and now he cares for others the same way." As the sun set over New Busan, casting long shadows across the colony, other species began arriving for the weekly Galactic Friendship Gathering. The Zephyrian bird people came in ships that looked like giant feathers. The crystalline Luxites arrived in vessels that rang like bells as they landed. Even some reformed Vorthans, members of a peaceful faction that had overthrown their warlike government, came to learn about cooperation instead of conquest. Spark greeted each group with a different pattern of lights, somehow knowing exactly which colors and shapes each species found most beautiful. The young dragon had become a living symbol of the idea that understanding between different peoples was not only possible, but joyful. "You know what I think?" Hyunwoo said to Shalthis as they watched Spark perform for the gathering crowd. "I think we didn't rescue him that day in the destroyed station. I think he rescued us." "How so?" the great dragon asked. "Before we found him, humans were just another species struggling to find our place in the galaxy. We had technology and determination, but we didn't have a purpose that meant something beyond ourselves. Spark gave us that purpose. He showed us that our real strength isn't in our weapons or our ships, but in our ability to love something small and helpless until it becomes strong enough to love others in return." Shalthis nodded slowly. "And he showed us that strength and wisdom are not the same thing. We were strong enough to hide from our enemies and wait for them to forget about us. But you were wise enough to stand up for what was right, even when it put you in danger. That wisdom is what will change the galaxy." Spark, hearing his name mentioned, flew over and settled on Hyunwoo's shoulder. He looked up at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky, and his scales began to pulse with a rhythm that matched the distant heartbeat of the universe itself. In that moment, Everyone present could feel it. The sense that they were part of something bigger than themselves, something that would reach across the galaxy and touch every world, where beings looked up at the same stars and wondered if they were alone. They weren't alone anymore. They had each other. And they had learned that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can have the biggest consequences. All because one human captain looked at a tiny,